You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the Fifth Doctor story, Enlightenment. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How you, Dom?
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. Retweet us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, while Twitter's still around to be retweeting. And be sure to leave us comments where... Sorry, a little current events commentary there. And leave us comments wherever you find us on social media. We love to hear from you. And don't worry, folks. Wherever the next hot social media is, we'll be there.
And I wouldn't write Twitter off so quickly. So Dom is Dom is being a little pessimistic from a personal point of view.
Yeah. No, I'm annoyed with Twitter for having killed my third-party clients that made it easier to use. But that's Secrets of Tech. You can listen to Secrets of Tech for me to hear all about that. All right, let's talk about enlightenment, though, because we need some enlightenment in our lives here. Jimmy, could you give us a recap of what happens in this episode?
This week, the Fifth Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough are contacted by the White Guardian, who wants them to participate in a race. The race is being held by timeless beings known as Eternals. They have fashioned spaceships that look like ancient sailing vessels and abducted crews of the ships from different periods in Earth's history. Because the White Guardian's message was confused, the Doctor isn't initially sure what he's supposed to do, but he eventually determines that he needs to stop any of the Eternals from winning the race and claiming the prize, which is enlightenment or knowledge of everything in the history of the universe, apparently. If any of the Eternals win that prize, they will be able to create and destroy at will, and they're extremely capricious, so that would be bad. One of the Eternals, Captain Rack of a pirate buccaneer ship, is so determined to win that she's destroying the other ships. Mixed up in all of this is the Black Guardian, who still wants the Doctor dead, but Turlough finally renounces the Black Guardian. The way the Doctor stops any of the Eternals from winning is to throw Captain Rack overboard. He and Turlough then pilot the Buccaneer to the finish line, winning the race themselves. When the two Guardians offer the Doctor enlightenment, he refuses, saying that he's not ready for it. The White Guardian then offers Turlough, who helped win the race, a partial share of enlightenment, which would make him fabulously rich. The Black Guardian insists that Turlough must turn over the Doctor to him, though, in order to claim the prize. And Turlough refuses to do so, causing the Black Guardian to vanish in flame and agony. After which, the Doctor reveals that the enlightenment that Turlough got was the spiritual riches of making the choice. The end.
So this is the third part of the Black Guardian trilogy, so-called. So we've had these three Fifth Doctor stories featuring Turlough and the Fifth Doctor and the Black Guardian. But we've actually recently started seeing the White Guardian in the Fourth Doctor's time. We had a story where we just started the Keys of Time?
The Key to Time season. Yeah.
Yep.
And I have to say, the White Guardian looked a lot better in the Key to Time than he does here. It's the same actor, which I wouldn't have guessed, but it is apparently so. But he's dressed so differently, and I'm sorry, the white bird on the head look just isn't as cool as the goatee and the Southern gentleman and the wicker chair. Yep. I'm so cool talking to you, Doctor thing.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
There's both, and the Black Guardian also has like a weird,
it's got a blackbird on his head,
like a raven or a crow or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's about. It's kind of a weird look. Do we ever see these guys again?
This is their last appearance. The first appearance is in the Key to Time, and the last appearance is the Black Guardian trilogy.
I was going to say, they at the end, they were hinting that there might be a third appearance planned, but we haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
Could still happen.
They could easily bring them back, and they are in Big Finish.
Right. Not surprising. Do we have any explanation for what they are? Are they just super powerful mega beings?
They're just super powerful mega beings.
Okay. Which are they related to the Eternals?
Maybe, but they're clearly superior to the Eternals here. You know, like Captain Rack is allying herself with the Black Guardian in order to gain power. And the Eternals, the two Guardians have the prize. They have Enlightenment, and the Eternals are all seeking it. Okay. And so, and they banish them back to, you know, the White Guardian himself banishes, you know, Eternals back to the realms of eternity and things like that. So there, we have a clear pecking order where you've got the Guardians up at top, at least of what we've seen, then the Eternals, then the Ephemerals with kind of the Doctor at the top of the Ephemerals.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so it was the Guardians who were giving the prize. So interesting. Yes. Yeah, they had Enlightenment they were giving away. Because I was wondering, like, so if it's so bad for the Eternals to win it, why are they giving it? But I guess
there apparently are rules that the Guardians are operating under. The White Guardian is explicit about this in talking to the Doctor. He says that as long as I exist, the Black Guardian will exist even if he's defeated. And and we're going to be here until we're no longer needed. So they're performing some kind of function. And since they don't like each other and don't get along, they're apparently both going to disagree with aspects of the program they're forced to work within.
Okay. Well, and it seems like they're saying that the strength of each ebbs and flows. So in this one, the Black Guardian is much more stronger because the White Guardian needs the energy from the TARDIS just to be able to communicate with the Doctor. You know, whereas the Black Guardian can just appear, you know, until the end. But you see the Black Guardians holding the orb of Enlightenment, this little orb that's got the crystals in it of Enlightenment. So maybe it was because he's the stronger one at that point. He's the one who kind of set up these rules, and the White Guardian, because he's not strong enough to fight against him, had to go along with it. That's kind of at least what they seem to imply to me in this one.
And it's kind of like a duality. The good and evil are equal duality, that sort of worldview idea. Kind of
like the Force.
Right. The Emperor. Yes.
By the way, I'd note a couple of similarities of this story to some other stories. This is, at least conceptually, similar to the War Games in that you have these super powerful beings who have been kidnapping people from Earth's history and pitting them in a competition against each other.
Yep.
Only it's a race instead of a war, and it's Eternals instead of invading aliens who are technologically advanced, but it's same in principle. Advanced beings kidnap people from Earth's history and use them to compete. It's also similar to Voyage of the Damned, where we have instead of these other historical ships, we have specifically the Titanic in space. And so you have the same kind of fusion of the aesthetic of an old-time wind power ship with a spaceship.
Yeah.
And they've done similar things with other things, like they Mummy on the Orient Express. They do space trains instead of space sailing ships. But but Voyage of the Damned in particular, it's a space sailing ship, or at least a space ocean-going ship.
Right. And we have seen the Eternals return in the 13th Doctor time. We see at least one Eternal, right? Wasn't that?
Do we?
Wasn't that the? I should have even looked it up. I guess I
Gozer the Gozerian, whatever that was.
Yeah. Well, there was one where the Doctor is taken captive, and it was I think the second Doctor season.
I know the one you're thinking of, and they talk about the guy and his sister being gods or something. But I don't know if they called them Eternals. They may have.
I guess we speculated at the time that they might be related to the Eternals.
Where I'm familiar with the Eternals from is they're in Big Finish.
Okay. According to TARDIS Wiki, it thinks that the called "Can You Hear Me" was the episode. And they think that they were Eternals. So, so may or may not be. That's interesting. So,
by the way, one little thing they did, and I appreciate that they didn't call attention to this. I mentioned over in Secrets of Star Trek, where we recently looked at data lore, how stupid it was for them to say that Data doesn't use contractions.
Yes.
I think it was great that they don't have Data use contractions. I would just not mention that because then it's going to attract attention to it. Number one, there's no rational basis for it. But number two, unless you programmed him not to.
Right.
But secondly, your actors' flubs are all going to get picked up if you say it. And so they should have just let it be a background thing that Data doesn't use contractions, and it would just make him a little eerie, a little different than everybody else. Well, they do something similar in this story with the Eternals, and they don't call attention to it. But apparently, all of the actors playing the Eternals were given orders: do not blink. And so you won't see them. You won't see them blink on camera. Now they do look up and down and so forth, and their eyes will partially close as they do that, but they don't blink. And in some scenes, that makes them look like they've got distant, weird eyes, and they don't walk around with them riveted open, But you won't catch, at least there may be flubs in there, but in the main, you will not see them blinking.
Wow!
And the only thing that come close to calling that is when Doctor and Turlough first see Mr. Mariner. Turlough mentioned, or they kind of talk about how they look almost like they're hypnotized.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're very well. At least the ones on the Edwardian sailing ship, they're very emotionless, very flat. Rack, on the other hand, and her Buccaneers, they are pirates, so they're not flat emotionless.
Yeah.
And it's almost like so not just almost like they are play acting at being whatever their ship they're on, and so. The stoic Edwardian British captain, that sort of thing. They overplay that, whereas, the over-the-top Buccaneer, I mean, this is many, many years prior to Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's still kind of that sort of Jack Sparrow's over-the-top pirate thing.
And that's what they wanted. That's why they created the ships the way they did, is they wanted to basically LARP, live-action role play these characters, these positions,
So, one of the things that really stands out to me in these three stories so far, the Black Guardian stories, is how much Tegan clearly doesn't like Turlough. There is clearly a strong animosity between her and Turlough, and there's a strain between Tegan and the Doctor.
Yeah,
that's evident throughout.
And this is something that was obvious to Peter Davison too. And apparently about the time of this story, he went to the producers and said, look, you built so much tension into these relationships. It is not clear to me why the Doctor would want to travel with these people. and the producers said, okay, yeah, let's reorient this. And so Tegan and Turlough will become friendly after this.
Oh, good.
They're using, in order to justify Turlough, who is a traitor, at least in principle, being with the Doctor needs to appear oblivious to the fact that Turlough is a traitor. But you don't want complete obliviousness on the part of everyone. And so they've written Tegan as picking up on Turlough is not trustworthy,
right?
And reacting in a typical Tegan way to that, but she's meant to be kind of the audience foil picking up on the traitor,
right? And it kind of makes the Doctor seem oblivious, frankly. And that's not a good look.
Not as oblivious as Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, but yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Well, and of course, when in the previous episodes, Tegan was almost always the one that would catch Turlough talking to the Black Guardian. Now, she didn't realize it, but she's like, did you hear voices, or are you talking to yourself? Or, there'd be something where she would be right, she'd be the one that, Turlough, what's going on? She'd be the one right there.
True. So, it's an interesting aspect of these eternal sailing vessels in space is that, like I said, the crew are all ephemerals, are all humans taken from different time periods appropriate to the ship. And that was an interesting aspect when they encounter the sailors aboard the Edwardian sailing vessel. And
yeah, they brought life and energy to the show, and they're in like one episode, and then they're basically out. I mean, you see them in backgrounds and stuff, but they're basically done. But they're far more interesting as people, and their relationships, and they've got comedy, and they've got arguments, and they're a dynamic, interesting group, the Edwardian sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And then they leave after the first episode, and they're all up on deck now, and so we never see them.
Right.
And we're stuck with the boring officers.
Right. Apparently they put something in the grog rations that make them compliant, and then BBC doesn't pay the extras fees for the rest of the show, the story.
Well, and then they have the one guy, it was Jenkins, I think his name was, that was we had taken the teetotaler's oath.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that they bring that up in episode 2, and it goes nowhere because they're implying that he's somehow different because he's not drinking the grog ration, and he's got a key to the rum locker, and he gives the key to Turlough, and it seems like they're building towards something. And nothing happens with that. After he gives him the key, it's like we never get to see what's in the rum locker. We never the whole thing with don't drink the rum never comes up again.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And they even have one of the Eternals, I think it was Mr. Mariner, get the key from Turlough because he knew he had it.
Right.
And that's it. And the character who gave him the key vanishes. And the only other thing about not drinking the rum is when they're on the pirate ship, they're at a soiree, they're serving champagne to everybody, and the Captain Rack, the pirate captain, says to the doctor, "Does the wine not please you?" And he says, "Oh, it pleases us very much, but we don't have your constitutions." Mm-hmm. Period. Right. The end. No more on that subject in the whole story.
Right. The one other aspect of the crew on the sailing ship is when the doctor introduces himself as the doctor. Yeah, they all think, "Oh, great food! You're gonna make us some great lunches." Well, it turns out apparently at the time, the ship's doctor was the cook.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
and which used Turlough to no end.
Yes, and that was a great little bit, because they're in this crowded, cabin with all these guys, and they're playing cards or something, and the doctor says, "Yes, I'm the doctor," and they're all delighted. "Oh, hey, the doctor, great, wonderful. We've been eating, horrible stuff for months," and the doctor's like, "Oh, the doctor, the ship's cook, of course."
Yeah, I can't imagine they were eating hardtack, which if you've ever had that is, I mean, it's a cracker, but it is a super dense, super hard cracker.
Oh, yes. It has to be soaked. Yeah.
It's basically made out of wheat and water, and the water's all gone.
Yeah. And the reason that the ship's cook was the ship's doctor is because most sailing ships in the Great Age of Sail didn't have actual doctors on board. So when medical needs had to be done, especially amputations during battle, who had all the sharp implements, it was the cook. And so, the cook often took care of most medical needs that would have required a doctor. So,
incidentally, this is one of a couple of times I can think of where the doctor introduces himself, and where Peter Davison's doctor introduces himself, and he gets unexpected results like that, which is fun, because he also in Black Orchid.
Yep.
He introduces himself as the doctor, and it gets caught up in a
was it the cricket thing?
In the cricket thing about their do you know, I forget exactly how it's introduced, but it's like, "Oh, you're like the master." The Who, the other doctor. And you're thinking the other doctor, the other Time Lord? And it's like, no, it's just a famous cricket player known as the Master, and also known as the Doctor.
That's right. You know, one of the interesting aspects of the Eternals is that they can't create things themselves. They need the minds of ephemerals to supply imagination, so to create the world around them. And they're very bored. They seem to be like bored with, you know, eternity. And they remind me a lot of the Q in that Voyager episode, who have lived so long that they just want to die. And it's kind of an interesting parallel here to the Q continuum and the Eternals, which I thought was interesting. So like we mentioned, the prize that we learn is they call it enlightenment, the wisdom to achieve what they desire most. Do we ever find out what Stryker's desire is with the enlightenment? I know we find out what Rax is. I mean, she just wants to
cause chaos.
Cause chaos, yeah.
Yeah, Stryker's so so boring. I don't think they really even talk about it. I don't think he even knows what he wants out of it.
And then we have this moment of where the heightened moment with the Black Guardian and Turlough, where the Black Guardian is just sick of Turlough's, you know, cowardice and failures, and condemns him to live on this ship, which prompts Turlough to attempt suicide. We have like an attempted suicide on Doctor Who, where he's rescued by the pirates who, you know, are swooping by and pick him up along the way. But it's kind of, you know, dramatic. I think that was the end of one of the episodes, right, where he leaps overboard.
Yep, it was a cliffhanger. And so he tells first he privately tells the Black Guardian he's not going to help him. And the Black Guardian then says, "I sentence you to eternal life. You will never get off of this ship for all eternity, blah, 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 blah." And the line, "I sentence you to eternal life," okay, good line.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm going, okay, really? He's on this. Okay, no, admittedly, this is not conscious eternal torment.
Right.
This might be conscious eternal annoyance, but not much more than that. And also, I'm going, have you changed Turlough's nature so that he won't die? Because otherwise he'll just grow old and die like anybody else. And the idea of him staying on this ship, these things blow up.
Right.
Captain Rack has been blowing them up. And when that happens, the crew gets blown up with it. The Eternals are not saving the human crew. And so they themselves will go off to their own realm, but they're letting the humans die because they're just pitiful ephemerals. So I don't know how long Turlough would live on this ship. But he and the Doctor's got a TARDIS right there. So, you know, this seems unmotivated. But then later, when they're on the pirate ship and Turlough finds his way into the ion room that has a window to space, and the whatever force field is down, and Turlough thinks he's going to die, he begs the Guardian to come back. And now, instead of "I sentence you to eternal life," the Guardian's all, "Die, Turlough, die." And it's like, wait a minute, make up your mind here.
He's pretty capricious. But it's the issue of the, you know, spending eternity on that sailing ship that gets Turlough so upset that he attempts to go overboard. Because he's talking to the Doctor, "We can leave now, right? We can leave. You know, we can do this. We can get off this ship, right?" And Doctor's like, "Calm, yeah. We can go when it's time. You know, we'll be good. We'll go back to the TARDIS." And that's when he flips out and jumps over the rail.
He also, and he's hearing the Black Guardian's voice at that point, which the others aren't. But if I'm the Doctor and Turlough is standing up saying, no, I'll never serve you again," and then leaps over, I'm going to have a few follow-up questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Doctor doesn't.
Well, I mean, so there are some script problems here, because the Black Guardian knows what's going to happen in the sense of Rack's job. He's working with Rack to destroy all the other ships. So he knows that the Rack is going to destroy the ship and Turlough's going to die on it. But also, these ships are all going to go away once the race is over, right? And so
they're not going to have them for all eternity.
Right. And I don't know how good of a prediction that was from the Black Guardian, but Turlough just tried, like, you're sentenced to life for eternity. So he jumps overboard and presumably, had he not been rescued, would have died. So, you know.
What, you mean
not
the
all
Black
powerful.
Guardian lied to Turlough?
Well,
I mean, let's be clear. The Black Guardian is exactly an honest character in this. So
right. I can get that the Black Guardian is winding Turlough up with some of this "you're going to stay here forever" stuff, but it's pretty thin gruel.
Now the writers do try to misdirect a few times with regard to Turlough by having him seem to betray the Doctor multiple times, and the Doctor assuming that Turlough's just having he's just trying to trick the whatever Eternal he's talking to at the moment, and then it being unclear to the viewer. Is he? And so, but we do this several times throughout it, and apparently he was all. Well, I don't know. It's not really clear if he was really just trying to trick the Eternals.
The last time it happens, he and the Doctor have had a private conversation in the ion room of the pirate ship, and the Doctor has had a line where he said, "Before we get out of here, let's formulate a plan."
Right.
And we don't hear what the plan was. So then when I see Turlough apparently betraying the Doctor again, I'm thinking this must be part of the plan.
Yep.
But they never really explain how. So there are aspects of this story that I enjoy. I enjoy episode 1 of the 4. You know, we've got the Edwardian crewmen who are there. Incidentally, the Doctor gets a newspaper in the room, and apparently, according to TARDIS Wikia, the newspaper is from July of 1902.
Right.
But the newspaper has a story about the first British submarine, and the first British submarine was the AE. What was it? The AE HMS A1.
Right.
And it actually, well, now how do I have this? The date on the newspaper may be September 1901, but the sub launched July 1902. So there's a little confusion about exactly what time these guys are from.
Right.
But it's basically 1901, 1902. And we are told explicitly they are Edwardian, which means for Americans, they are during the reign of King Edward VII, who was the successor of Queen Victoria.
Right.
So she dies, and then her son, Prince Albert, different guy than her husband, Prince Albert.
Yep.
It takes the throne as King Edward, and he reigns until 1910. And by the way, this is King Edward VII is the Prince Albert of the long-running 20th century prank. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? Yes. Well, why don't you let him out? This is that Prince Albert. It's the pipe tobacco Prince Albert.
Right. So and then we have Mariner.
But I'm sorry, but I was saying they're gone basically after the first episode, and it's like, wow, does this slam into a wall for episodes 2 and 3? There's just lots of not much happening. And then it all gets wrapped up very quickly in episode 4. So episodes 1 and 4 have forward plot momentum, but episodes 2 and 3 just really seem slow.
They feel like filler. Yeah. This really could have been a 2-part story without all that filler. So I was going to say Mariner, who's the first mate, the eternal first mate on so is it the Striker, the ship? Or is that the captain?
It's the Striker's the captain. The ship, I think, has another name, but I was thinking of it as Striker ship.
Yeah. Oh, I remember there was a life preserver with the name on it.
Like the serpent or something like that. Yeah. Shadow.
Yeah, something like that. In any case, Mariner is the first mate aboard Striker ship, and he has this fascination with Tegan. And like he follows around like a puppy dog and is really creepy stalker.
Yeah, and it's like you're not like any ephemeral I've ever met. And I'm going, really? Tegan is so different.
Maybe he's just never met an Australian before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was and she's like has no time for him. She is not even like rejecting him so much as just like, dude, just go away.
Yeah.
Throughout it. And because she's dealing with all these weird things, including her room aboard Stryker's ship that starts to turn into like her bedroom back in Brisbane, where
And the TARDIS.
And they pulled in props from her bedroom on the TARDIS as well.
Okay.
So and at one point she says it feels like someone's been rummaging through my memories, and that's exactly what's been happening.
Right,
Yep.
right. And so
these things like her stewardess outfit is hanging on the coat rack. You see the picture of Aunt Vanessa, who is the one that was shrunk by the master in her first episode.
Yep, that's right.
So
that's
things
right.
like that.
Yeah, and then Mariner at one point sounds like he's expressing his love for Tegan, but he says, "I don't know what love is." You know, he says what he really wants is existence.
Yeah, it isn't what he has is not so much love, although it is meant to sound like that. I mean, we're meant to pick up on that reference. But what he really has is terminal neediness.
Yes.
This guy is, and Tegan is right to reject him. This is not love. This guy is not going to be an equal partner with you. This guy is a psychic leech.
Right, right. It's like that girl, the overly attracted girlfriend meme. I don't know, with the eyes.
Exactly.
So
very clingy.
Very clingy. Yes, he is Klingon. So there's a party. Rack throws a party on her border ship where she invites the other Eternals, and for some reason to get them aboard. I think maybe so she can sneak these weapons. So her weapon focuses a beam device of some sort on a jewel that has been implanted on the other ship.
Yeah. It uses the power of darkness, whatever that is, that becomes effectively a destructive beam like a laser. But in order to target it, you have to have it can apparently you can't visually target it. It only will target these jewels that she has, and so she's got to sneak a jewel onto the ship, whatever ship she wants to blow up, and she's been doing that different ways.
Right, and so this way is to sneak it into a tiara that Tegan is wearing to the party. She's been dressed up in period clothing, and she's wearing this tiara, and so she hypnotizes her, and then. Or stops time, or whatever you want to say, and then sneaks the jewel on her. And it's interesting. I like the one aspect of that, which is that when the Doctor discovers it, he's like, destroy it, and smashes it into bits. Yeah. And it's like,
it makes it worse.
Yeah, it just makes it worse. It means now the power's focused on all the little bits. You got to clean it all up, get every little one.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a nice turn on the expected trope of just destroy it and you're done.
It was that was nice.
Yeah. So meanwhile, just thinking, looking through my notes, Rack says what her goal is to be amused, to destroy or create as she wishes, and so she's got this I don't know, this awful personality. I just didn't find her. How do I put this nicely? I never found the character like. I think she's supposed to be this voluptuous, attractive pirate queen, and I just found the character kind of repulsive in a sense. Just like it was, I don't know, too over the top. Like the laughter was too, I don't know. There was something about it that just it didn't work for me.
Well, I think it's partly that she's an Eternal.
Yeah.
And they don't really get humans. And so she's being an over-the-top human.
Yeah.
But also, I just took it as kind of, this is pantomime.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it too, is like she's the opposite of the dry, boring crew on the Edwardian ship. She's the overly exuberant, overly yar yo ho ho pirate.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I guess that's probably intentional, that she was supposed to be, sort of repellent in that sense, not repulsive, but repellent in that sense. So we get to this final confrontation. The race is over. The Doctor and Turlough have won the race, and we have the White Guardian and the Black Guardian there, and with the I think it's in the somewhere on board the pirate ship. And
it was the same room where the party was on the pirate ship.
Okay, and the White Guardian and the Black Guardian are kind of in this confrontation, and say the White Guardian says, "Destroy the light, and you destroy yourself. Dark cannot exist without knowledge of light." The Black Guardian says, "Nor light without dark. Your powers are waning." And it's like this. Is that true? Because darkness is the absence of light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, this is just poetic stuff.
Yes. Right.
But as you'll hear in what, by the time this is released, should be a recent episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, the first 300,000 years after the Big Bang were actually dark, because the universe was filled up with a highly dense particle soup of unbound protons and neutrons and electrons, and photons interact with electrons. And so because the electrons were not yet attached to atoms, they're just in this thick soup, a photon could not travel very far without hitting an electron and interacting with it, and so light would not propagate any appreciable distance, just like it wouldn't in a thick cloud of soot, of smoke. And so it wasn't until 300 years after the Big Bang, 100,000 years after the Big Bang, that the density of the particles became low enough that you could have stable atoms form. And when those atoms formed, it let the photons of light travel freely for the first time. Light in the universe turned on, and that light is now the cosmic microwave background. It's the remnant light from when the first atoms formed. So, yes, you can have darkness without light.
Very good.
This is I mean, obviously this issue with the White Guardian versus the Black Guardian is the yin and yang, the two opposites.
Right. And we're trying to build this idea that there can be no final defeat of one, and that leaves the other standing, and that sort of idea. So, which is not the Christian view, by the way, the Judeo-Christian view, which is that evil will eventually be defeated. It has been defeated and will eventually be permanently defeated.
And just as darkness is a privation of light, according to Thomas Aquinas, evil is a privation of good.
Right. So back to the story. Somehow the Doctor and Turlough have put Rack and her first mate overboard. I'm not sure how, but they did.
Well, they're in the room that has a window to space.
Yeah.
And this room, it's got a grill that no one could fall through.
Right. That's your small child.
They keep making it sound like, or implying that this grill is threatening and you could fall through it, but no one could fall through that.
Right.
And it has a force field that even when they turn it off, it only creates a slow leak. We hear this hissing, but it's clearly a slow leak, and they're talking to each other. There's no explosive decompression, but yeah. However, I do like it in that Turlough and the Doctor, I mean, there's two of them. There was the captain and her first mate, and the Doctor and Turlough off screen manhandled them and threw them into space to their dissolution, at least. I don't guess they would die being Eternals, but
yeah. Nice
to see the Doctor, or at least be aware of the Doctor throwing people into space without a spacesuit.
Right. So as you mentioned, Jimmy, in the recap, that they win Enlightenment, and Turlough wins a piece of it, and he's given the diamond, this giant diamond that the Enlightenment represents, the Enlightenment or contains it or something along those lines, and he has to choose to either give the Enlightenment or the Doctor to the Black Guardian. Like the Black Guardian has, it's sort of like he's made a deal with the devil, and he's got to pay up, and it's either give up the Enlightenment or give up the Doctor. And I keep... So the Black Guardian can't just attack the Doctor. I mean, there's apparently a rule that he can't attack the Doctor. Do we know I think we probably discussed this before, why the Black Guardian wants the Doctor dead.
Yes, but it's a spoiler, so
Oh, right. That's
Father
why.
Cory and I can't really say.
Okay.
Just
all right.
Just kind of a hint. It does have something to do with the key to time.
Yeah.
season.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. That's why I don't remember ever having learned that. So that's why. Now I remember that. So, and so he throws the diamond at the Black Guardian, which apparently is kryptonite to him, and burns him up. And so, as you mentioned, the enlightenment that Turlo has won is the ability to make a choice for good. Is that what?
He's sort of, yeah.
That sounds like the prize is the friends we've made along the way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is enlightenment that it is enlightening that he has chosen to be good rather than evil. So I guess there's a little bit of a moral in that it is better to choose good than evil.
Also, and so sometimes on Doctor Who, the producers and scriptwriters have been Buddhists, and they've worked Buddhist themes into it, including in the Fifth Doctor's era, like Snake Dance,
right?
On Dharmaloka, which is one of the Buddhist afterlife realms. And but this has a Christian subtext worked into it. I forget the writer's name. This episode is the first time in Doctor Who history that an episode was both written by a woman and directed by a woman. This story. And what that shows us is women can turn in mediocre production work just like men can, because this is pretty mediocre. I mean, it's got nice aspects, but it's not the best story ever either. And so it's just kind of mediocre. But the writer was saying that she was modeling the prize off of the idea of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Genesis.
Right.
And do you really want to eat from that or not? Mm-hmm. Or would you rather have the wisdom not to eat of the knowledge of everything?
Right.
And so this time there is a Christian subtext to it, and that subtext is also on display when Turlo throws the Enlightenment diamond at the Black Guardian, and he bursts into flame and fades out screaming in agony, and he's clearly going to hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, he's the serpent in the garden who has been whispering to him. Right. Okay. All right. I think that's interesting. Yeah, and I do like the idea that that enlightenment is the ability to make the choice for good. That's if you're gonna have a message, that's a good message. I like that. It's better than some of the Buddhist messages that they've given us in the past. Frankly, from my point of view. And that's when we end, where the White Guardian warns that the Black Guardian will be back for a third encounter, which has not yet happened in Doctor Who.
On screen, at least.
On screen, yes. And Turlo asks the Doctor to take him home. He wants to, and presumably he wants to leave and no longer be a companion. And presumably, in what the next Fifth Doctor story, that doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, it doesn't. So kind of a downer ending.
Yeah.
Despite, I mean, even though they could have made it, and I think maybe the writer meant it to be a touching ending, but it is played in a downer way.
Yeah.
To where it's like sad almost at the end, even though they won. But Turlo does say, "Let's go to my home planet," which is we'll later learn is Tryon. But they're not going to go to Tryon. They're going to go to 13th century England, 13th century England, and the Master's going to be back, and we're going to get the worst.
I just remembered who's coming on.
The worst companion of classic Doctor Who ever.
I forgot about. I saw that what the next episode was, and I went, okay, yeah, that episode. And it's like I just remembered who the companion was that comes on in that episode.
Yeah. I just flipped over to that in the wiki, and I'm like, oh, you guys have talked about that one a lot.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting.
The only companion ever to be killed by the Doctor and have the audience cheer. Yeah.
It was a mercy for the audience.
How long do we get the chameleon for?
Oh, Chameleon's in for quite a while, but we never see Chameleon because they couldn't get the device to work. And so we have like a beginning story and an ending story and not much else with Chameleon. The rest of the time, Chameleon's just back in the TARDIS in a closet or something.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it shows up once in a while, just they wheel him out and he just kind of stands there and wheel him back in, that kind of deal. But yeah.
Yeah, what a run. Like we have the downer of the departure of Nyssa, and then we have this one that kind of ends on a minor key, and then next one we have Chameleon show up. This is not a great run for the 20th anniversary season.
And I was going to say, and then following that story, we have the 5 Doctors,
right? And is that not a great one either?
Yeah,
it's meh.
Okay, yeah, that's sad to hear.
You're hitting a problem, and with 5 Doctors of how, because it's not just 5 Doctors. You need, in addition to the 5 Doctors, you need at least 5 companions, and then you need a villain, and then you need other people to be threatened.
Right.
And you're getting a cast that it's like, how are you going to do service to all of these characters? And it's going to feel thin, and it does. That's why I think that that in the New Who era, they made absolutely the right decision by not trying to cram every single Doctor into a story that's an hour long, because you will not be able to properly service all of these characters.
Right. Even in that last, the regeneration episode for the 13th Doctor was very brief cameos for each of the surviving
it was
Doctors.
only a handful of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Not even all of the surviving Doctors. Yeah. So we the 5th Doctor, we have 5th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, Susan, the Brigadier, Sarah.
Well, and to be fair, the fourth isn't really in there. They reused footage from Shada. So we'll talk about this when we get to it.
He was meant to be in there, and he's barely in there by way of stock footage.
Gotcha. All right. So, but that's for the future at some point. All right. Last thoughts about Enlightenment, Father Cory.
As I was thinking about it, I remember this episode when I watched it as a kid and, younger age, and being really kind of confused by it. And just because there are things I didn't quite understand as a kid. Now that I watch it again, I thought it was okay. I'm not as down on it, but as I would have been then, but I think it was an okay episode. There was parts of it that were kind of fun, as Jimmy mentioned, but yeah, it was an okay episode.
Jimmy?
I like some of the dialogue in it. There's, I like the doctor, the ship's cook line. I like, I sentence you to eternal life. There's also a bit where where Captain Stryker is reading the Doctor's mind and realizes he's a Time Lord, and he says, "You're a Time Lord, a Lord of Time. Are there lords in such a small domain?" Right.
One of the nice things I liked was that at the party on Rack's ship, the Doctor's looking over the buffet and sees an array of celery and takes one and replaces the one on his lapel. So that was nice.
And it's a nice prop upgrade, because the other one was looking kind of worn. And
yes.
In neither case is it real celery. Because that would go bad way too fast, and they'd have matching problems in the costuming if they were using real celery. So the Doctor has always had a piece of fake celery, and now they upgrade it.
All right. So I think that should do it for this time. What did you think of this 5th Doctor story called Enlightenment? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can watch our recording of the Secrets of Doctor Who in video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should also subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 12th Doctor story, The Magician's Apprentice. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Don.
Akin. Thank you as well. And once again, I'm Tom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, brave heart, Tegan.